Once you get to the capping vCenter instance, you'll see the splash screen. We're going to click Launch vSphere Client HTML5. Here we're going to log in with the provided credentials. And the domain here is vSphere.local. And then we're going to log in with the password that was also provided. So once you log in, this is you'll be greeted by either a screen that looks like this. It may look like this with these closed. But once you're here, we're going to go over to the menu bar, hit administration, go over to users and groups, and you're going to find your username, click the menu bar and hit edit. From here, we're going to just change the current password. So you're going to enter your current password and change it to a new one, along with making sure that your other information is accurate here. I'm not going to change it, but on your end, you change it and hit OK, which would then close out that splash screen. From there, we're going to go back, hit the menu icon, and we're going to hit hosts and clusters. This is going to be that flat splash screen that we were on at first. And then we've got 4 icons up here. We've got hosts and clusters here, VMs and templates here, storage, and networking. We're going to go over to VMs and templates, and you can see as you drop down these menus here, you should have a folder. In your folder, we're going to go into Actions and New Virtual Machine. We're going to click Create a Virtual Machine, and we're going to name this something that is specific. So I'm going to name this Linux Web Server, and I want my IP appended onto the end of that. So I'm going to say Linux Web Server 10.10.9.100. And again, this is going to be a Linux web server, which is why I'm adding that there to the front, and I have my IP address on the end. Make sure that you at least have your IP address on the end here, just because it makes it that much easier to determine the VMs in the future when you have to edit them. So once we have that, right, we're going to make sure it's selected on your team folder. If you go to a different folder, you're not going to be able to deploy it there. It has to be on your team folder. We're going to hit next. We're going to want to click this capping cluster resources. If you go down to the other resources, you could click one of them, but if you go on the capping cluster, it could be deployed to any 3 of these, which allows it then to be load balanced. So if I click next, we're going to want, this is our storage selection. You can see that I have ISO repos along with current capping. Current capping is where we're going to deploy this stuff. You click ISO repos, you're not going to have the privileges to. So we're going to click current capping. We're going to go through. We're going to make sure that the compatibility should be at ESXi 6.5. We're going to hit next again. And this is going to be important that we get this right. So I'm going to do Linux, and I'm going to do CentOS 7. What this does is make sure that I have the right devices showing to the virtual machine. Windows VMs use a different network interface card than Linux VMs do. And there's a few other little odds and ends, so making sure that the OS is correct from the start is important. Next, I'm going to go through the hardware customization. I'm going to want 4 CPU cores, and I'm going to want to make sure that I'm doing 4 cores per socket. So what this does is it shows the virtual machine that I have 1 processor. That processor has 4 cores. If I had this at one core per socket, then the virtual machine would think I had 4 different processors with 1 core each. For simplicity, it's better to have one processor with 4 cores. The next thing I'm going to do is up this RAM to 4 gigs, and the hard drive I'm going to leave at 16 here, but I'm going to want to make sure that I have it on thin provisioned. I'm going to close that tab, and then I'm going to make sure I have the network 10.10.9.0 selected. The next thing I'm going to do is mount my ISO. So I'm going to want to make sure that I have my boot image there. So I'm going to, in the new CD DVD drives, mount a data store ISO. If I click here on capping current, you're going to see I can't do, nothing shows up here. I'm going to go over to ISO repo here. And you can see I've got folders for different operating systems. So I want the Linux operating system. I've got 2 distributions in here, one's CentOS and the other's Ubuntu. I'm going to choose CentOS. And I'm going to want CentOS 7 here. Hit OK. And then I want to make sure that it's connected at power on. If it's not connected at power on, when I boot it for the first time, it's just going to go to a blank screen, right? I want to make sure that the DVD ISO is mounted such that when I boot it for the first time, it's going to boot to the installer. Once that's all done, I'm going to hit next and hit finish. And you can see now I have my virtual machine. I can edit it if I need to. You can only edit it when it's off, but I can edit it. So if I, for example, click the wrong ISO, I can switch back to client drive, click then client data store. I can go down and hit browse and make sure that I had the right one clicked. And then if I forgot to click that power on, connect at power on check mark, I can do it right there. And again, hit done. So once it does that, it's going to reconfigure. And then I can come up here and go to power and power on. My power on button here was grayed out. And if I refresh this, I should be able to do it. If not, it could just be an issue with this session, but I can come down to that actions here to power it on. Once I have that, I'm going to hit launch web console. The web console launched directly for me, but sometimes you may have a pop-up blocker error, in which case you just got to turn your pop-up blocker off or allow it for a pop-up block. For CentOS 7, it's going to be different for every install, but we're just going to go through what CentOS installer would be. Once the installer loads, we can edit some of the settings directly there. So now that the installer is loaded, I am going to make sure I have English selected, hit continue. And the big thing on most of these distributions that you automatically have to make sure is that you're selecting the correct disk. So that's what I've done. You can see I'm doing a minimal install. Again, this is specific for CentOS. But most Linux distros should allow you to at least configure the network from here. So I'm going to go in and configure the network, and it's going to be a manual configuration. My address, as I put up in the virtual machine's name, is 10.10.9.100, and I have a /24 netmask. and my gateway is 10.10.9.1. And then I have my DNS servers of 10.11.12.2 and 10.11.12.3. I'm going to save this. Once I do that, I need to enable that interface, which will actually go and enable it. And then from there, I can set my host name. For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to make it Linux web server and hit done there. Again, that was CentOS specific, but most Linux distros will allow you to do that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.